Welcome to the It's Never Too Late show. I'm Monica Topetti, your guest host, and today we are turning the tables and interviewing Suzanne Oshima. She is a life and love transformational coach, and today we are going to tackle this humdinger of a topic. 3 questions to ask before becoming exclusive. But before we dive in, Suzanne, can you share a little bit with our audience, the clients you work with, and why?
Sure. So thanks, Monica. I love getting the tables turned on me. But I help single women in midlife transform midlife into their best life and find love again in their next chapter. And the reason why I focus on women in midlife is because it makes me so sad that society and sometimes people can make us feel like women in midlife, that our life is over or that we're invisible, when I know the truth. It's not over, that this is just the beginning of your next chapter. And so I really want women to step into their empowerment and really, know that it's okay and that they're going to find love again in their next chapter.
I love the whole concept of what you do in the show, because love is not just wasted for the young. Love is not just for the young. Love is for everyone. And women, your clients in midlife, are finding love again. Tons and tons and tons of success stories. And so that's why we need somebody like you, who's an expert, who can help us navigate these midlife dating waters. So speaking of that, let's kind of jump into today's topic. And we're talking specifically, obviously, about dating in midlife. And you and I were talking the other day about how different dating in midlife is from dating in our 20s or 30s. In your 20s and 30s, you are looking for fun, looking to have a good time, like dating this guy, let's see where this goes kind of thing. But usually by the time you hit midlife, you're dating a little bit more intentionally. You want love, you're looking for a committed relationship. So what are some of the things that a woman in midlife who wants those things should be thinking about? And what are some questions that she should be asking the guys that she's dating to make sure that her relationship doesn't end up in a dead end?
Yeah, so, you brought up some really great points. It's true. In our 20s and 30s, we were dating to have fun. We were like, oh, there's chemistry and attraction, and we like the same things, and we have the common interests. And while that's still important in midlife, what a lot of women in midlife don't realize is that because we're at a different stage in our life, and so are the men, is we need to ask more pointed questions to really make sure that they're the right man for us. Okay. In that it's not just about our must-haves, it's not just about our deal breakers, is you need to go deeper. And I'm not talking about on the first date or the first conversation. What I'm talking about as you start dating the person and before you become exclusive. So the questions that you want to ask a man that are much deeper, like let's just say you started to realize, oh, he's got all my must-haves. He doesn't have any of my deal breakers. I feel like we have so much in common. There's chemistry and attraction, and that's all great. But some things that you may not be thinking about, but you need to think about, is the first question I would ask is, where do you see yourself living when you retire? Like, let's say he's still working and he's going to retire in the next 5 years. Is people start thinking, like when I lived in New York, a lot of people would say, oh, I want to retire to Florida.
Okay.
Which is great. But if you don't see yourself living in Florida, then he's probably the wrong man for you.
Oh my gosh.
Right?
Wow.
Or
about retirement. I just that didn't even occur to me, but that's such a great question.
Yeah, because, or he may say, my kids, my grown children and my grandchildren live in Texas, and say he lives in Chicago. He may say, I'm going to retire down there because I want to be closer to where my grown children are and my grandchildren. And if you don't see yourself living in Texas, you need to think about these things. Or vice versa. Maybe you see yourself moving closer to where your grown children are and you want to move wherever, Seattle or wherever it is. So you need to think about that, because people do have a location in their mind of where they want to retire to, or they may want to stay put. So you need to think about that.
Wow. Yeah, that's so true. Especially, in the case of you have a family and he has a family. And then like what so ooh, is that like a deal breaker, I guess, then? Be like if he kind of has his heart set, or can you pick a place in the middle?
Well, I would say it's not a deal breaker if you're both flexible.
Right.
It is a deal breaker if you're both inflexible. Like he's set on, I'm moving to Texas or Florida, and you're set on, no, I'm staying put. Then it is a deal breaker, right? So you have to kind of feel that out and see if you're both going to be flexible about that, or if it's going to work.
Right. That's a great question.
Anything's possible, but you both have to be willing to make compromises to make it work.
For sure. For sure. And then how far away is retirement? I mean, for some people that might be in a few years, right? Versus, well, I'm thinking I'm going to want to live by my daughter, but that's like 15 years from now, and I don't even know where she's going to be living, that kind of thing. So what kind of timetable, I guess, are you doing?
It's important, to think about the timetable, because if he's not thinking about retiring for 20 more years, but he sees in 20 years he's going to move at that point, that's important to know.
Right. Okay. All right. So where do you want to retire? First question, but not on the first date.
No, not on the first date. That's a little deep.
Talk you later. Okay. All right. So what's our second question we should be asking?
So the second question you should be asking, and this is if he has grown children and grandchildren, is how much time does he see himself spending with his grown children and his grandchildren? And the reason why this is an important question to ask is because someone in my group program said that digging further with the man that she was dating, is that she discovered he wanted to spend every single weekend with his grown children and his grandchildren. And while that's nice for him,
right,
that's nice for her, right? If she
right.
can't see herself spending every weekend with his family and his grandchildren, then he's probably not going to be a good fit for you for the long term. And again, this comes down to, can you reach a compromise that works for both of you? Because she, I'm assuming, has her own family too, right? And wants to spend time with them. Is he going to be willing to compromise and spend time with your family? Or is he like set on, I need to do this every weekend and there's no negotiation. I'm going to do this every weekend with or without you. So you have to decide if this is something you could see yourself doing for the rest of your life.
Well, and I think that's a great point. You had mentioned that most women probably have their own families. I mean, you're going to have those one-off situations where maybe there was a woman that couldn't have children or decided not to have children and is excited about the idea of, being involved in this extended family and spending a lot of time. But that's certainly a huge commitment either way. And then I think that's also like, I know this isn't one of your questions, but it makes me kind of think of like the holidays and how you're going to divide that up, because a lot of families, a lot of women I know, made it a life of going and taking their children to both sets of in-laws so that the children would have that experience. And then maybe even on top of that, doing a celebration at home. So Thanksgiving at, at the husband's, parents' house, and Thanksgiving at your parents', house, and then Thanksgiving at your house, and even Mother's Day, celebrating all of the mothers and never getting Mother's Day for themselves. And these same women, now that we're all in midlife, I was just having a conversation with a girlfriend the other day, and she's like, I spent 20 years celebrating Mother's Days at my mother-in-law's house, and I want a Mother's Day now. It's kind of about me. Like, what about me? And what about, my children? What about my traditions and that kind of thing? So that can be a real balancing act.
Yeah. Yeah, it's, that what you just described actually made me sad because why is it that she didn't get her own Mother's Day, that it was always about her mother-in-law? And, when we're in our 20s and 30s, of course, we don't think to ask that. It just kind of happens. And not, as we get into midlife, we may not have our parents anymore. So that may not make a difference. But the holidays, do make a difference because now you're going over to your kids' place, right? And your grandchildren and things like that. So, just certain things to think about. So,
yeah.
So the third question that
Number 3.
women really need to ask a man and is to ask him if there's something that he does on a regular basis in his life that is non-negotiable, that he would never give up.
Oh.
So I'm not talking about the kids and grandchildren every weekend, but maybe he's the type that maybe he goes fishing during the summer every single weekend. Maybe that's his thing. Or maybe he works out like 6 or 7 days a week after work and he will not give that up. So, and it's not to say that should be a deal breaker, but is that going to work for you? And is he, is that a lifestyle that you want, right? Some women have said to me, another thing is, like if he's into football, women have said to me, I was a football widow in my marriage, I don't want to be a football widow now. Right? To me, I'm biased because I'm a football fan, so I can't blame a man for that. But here's the thing, you can't expect a man to give that up all of a sudden now. Like for the last, 40 years, he's been watching football every Sunday. You can't go, well, I'm not going to be a football widow. Is what I would say is, if you're not a football fan, is use that as your time to go and do, time with the girlfriends, do your own thing. Maybe you like going to yoga or you like going hiking. Use that as your own time. Don't look at it as I'm a football widow. Because that's the negative. I look at it as, I get to do my own thing, but I would be on the couch watching football too.
You'd be with him.
Yeah, because I really do like football. But it's all in how we look at it, right? Mm-hmm. Because football widow is so negative. Look at it as a time to do your own thing.
Well, and it goes both ways because, is there something in your life that's very important to you that is a non-negotiable to give up? And, you mentioned a few things, somebody that's very religious or spiritual, going to her church or her temple, that might be something, on a weekly basis or a few times a week might be something really important to her. How would she feel if he asked her to give that up versus him saying, okay, I'm going to take the time that you do that if he doesn't share that practice with you and be like, that's when I'm going to go to the gym, right? That kind of thing. Like you can kind of like see if you can coordinate at some level your non-negotiables. It's you have to look at it from the man's point of view as well, I think.
Yeah, that's a really good point because I do have clients that going to church or temple is important to them, and if that's important to you, it's important for you to let him know that's important, and you want a man that will go with you to church. Or maybe you're the type that it is important to me, but he doesn't have to come to church with me every Sunday.
Right.
I would be okay if, he went and did his own thing, but he doesn't expect me to give that up. These are important conversations
Very.
because they are part of our life, are part of our routine on both sides. And it's important to have these conversations that we're not even thinking about.
Yeah. And I think too, like as we have these deeper conversations about the non-negotiables, I think probably going to church or temple is a bad example, but the response could seem very surface to you. Like, oh, he has his baseball season and he needs to watch his baseball. And, my dad watched baseball and I never had a relationship with my dad, go baseball widow, kind of going down that road. But then, there's a movie that came out years ago, Bull Durham, and Susan Sarandon was in the movie, and she referenced, the Church of Baseball, because that was something every Durham season, she was there scouting and at the games. And it could be a thing where, when he was a kid, his dad took him to play baseball, and that's the only time that they bonded. And he grew, he had a son, and he took his son to play baseball, and it's his time to really kind of connect with that. And so you might look at it like, oh, he just wants to watch his baseball game, when in reality it has a deeper meaning to him, so it requires, like you said, a deeper conversation, I think.
Yeah, yeah. It's important for us not to make assumptions. And it's also important for women to not try and change a man. If that's his thing,
Mm-hmm.
let that be his thing. Don't go, oh, well, no, he'll see that he wants to spend more time with me. He won't want to do that. No, if that's his thing, let him do his thing. If that's what makes him happy, just like whatever makes you happy, you don't want a man trying to change your routine or whatever it is that you love to do.
That's so true. It's so true. So, okay, so let's go through these questions again. So, retirement, when are you planning to retire, right? Number two was, number three was the non-negotiable. What was number two?
Two was, if he has grown children and grandchildren, like
Oh, yes.
how much time does he see himself spending with them? Because,
I
like I said,
mentally blocked that one out.
yeah, it's,
There's
people
some
don't
baggage there.
think,
I'm not going to lie.
but it's things that we don't really think about that are important, you
Are
know?
there any other questions we should be thinking? And while we're on the topic of exclusivity, can I ask you, should you wait till he brings the exclusive conversation up? Should you bring the exclusive conversation up? And when should this all happen? What's the timetable? I need to know.
Well, yeah, a lot of women need to know. But to me, that's like a control thing. We as strong,
Right.
independent women are always, we need to know. We need to be in control. It's
True.
there's no timetable. There
Okay.
is no timetable. It's when it happens organically because every relationship is different. There's always two different people and it's not going to progress on your timeline. It's not going to progress on his timeline. It's going to progress on our timeline. What's working for both of us.
Okay.
And so to answer your second part of the question is should she bring it up or she should not bring it up?
Okay.
It's and the reason why is because that's where I'm old fashioned is that you should wait for a man to bring it up. But it doesn't mean that you have to just sit there if he's not bringing it up. I wouldn't bring up the question of exclusivity, but I might bring up the question of, we've been dating for a while. I'm just curious, what are you looking for? Are you looking for an exclusive relationship? Or are you looking to get married again? What are you looking for? Are you just looking to have fun? Why not find out? He may say, I'm not ready for an exclusive relationship
Right.
for the next year or so because I just got out of a marriage and, or I just got divorced. So find out where he's at. He may not be ready for it.
Okay. Okay. And I know this is kind of goes back to like gender roles and like I have to bring this up because you brought up something about how women want control. And we've talked a lot about on this show about women being in their masculine energy versus being in their feminine energy, and how feminine energy is like receiving, but we're so used to giving. So is that kind of more of a conversation that like a man in his masculine energy kind of needs to like lead as far as like as part of the courtship process?
Yeah, I mean, again, a woman could ask him to be exclusive, but it's awkward. It's just like would you ask a man to marry you? It's the same thing. It's the
Okay.
same thing, and you're
Okay.
right.
Okay.
It puts the woman in the masculine energy. Look,
Okay.
here's what I say. If you
Hmm.
show up as the best version of yourself, both inside and out, and you're just yourself, right? And you
Yeah.
show up that way with him every time you see him, you don't try to be something you're not. Trust me, he will start to see that you're the type of woman that he wants to spend the rest of his life with. He will ask you to be exclusive. You won't have to prod him to do it. He will want to do it.
Mm,
And wouldn't you
that's
rather him want to do it rather than you giving him an ultimatum and making him feel
yeah.
like he's backed into a corner? That doesn't make anyone feel good. And at a certain point, even if he agrees to it, he's going to feel like his hands were tied, like it was a no-win. And at a certain point, he's going to go, you know what? I felt like I was backed into a corner, and that's not what I want. And then he'll jump ship.
Right. Right. Really good point. Really good point. Anything else that we missed in terms of these questions, these key questions, when we're looking to have an exclusive or before we're looking to have an exclusive relationship?
Yeah, the last point I would say is, I know these questions are uncomfortable to ask, right? They're really uncomfortable. But why not be uncomfortable now than unhappy later? So it's important to stay in the uncomfortableness, ask the questions, because you don't want to find out, 3 years down the road, oh, this is what he was thinking. I'm not on board for this, right? And vice
Right.
versa. You want to make sure he's on board for what you're thinking too. So,
Okay.
because you don't want to end up back at square one yet again and go, oh God, now I have to start all over.
For sure. For sure. Wow. Okay. So we got our questions. We're ready to go, ladies. I don't know about you, but I like learned so much in this conversation. Thank you, Suzanne. I'm sure our audience did as well. And actually, for ladies out there that want to delve a little bit deeper into this hot topic of midlife dating, you actually offer an amazing free webinar called The Secrets to Meet a Quality Man. It's online, it's totally free. People are registering for this thing like crazy. Can you tell us a little bit more about that webinar and what women can expect, how they can register?
Sure. So, in the Secrets to Be a Quality Man masterclass, I share with you the number one way to meet a quality man. I also share with you why it may not be working for you online. And ladies, I know what you're thinking. The reason why it's not working is because there aren't quality men online. Yes, there are. If you're not meeting them, it means something is off with your profile, whether it's the photos or essay. I share with you what's off, how to turn it around in this free masterclass. If you're watching the video, click on the video. Or if you're listening to the podcast, you can go to yournextamazingstory.com and just click at the top of the website and you can register for that.
Great, great. That sounds like an amazing class. And I'm sure everybody's going to rush right on and check that out. Meanwhile, thank you so much, Suzanne, for being here. And thank you to all of you for joining us on the It's Never Too Late show. Our show is actually available in podcast and videocast format, and you can find us on yournextamazingstory.com.